today on animation editing in Unreal Engine. I hope most or all of you were in my previous session, but if not, let me catch you up to speed. Yesterday we covered the basics and fundamentals of how to go from opening up Unreal to animating something, a character in a level sequence. While we touched on some of the tools in the last session, today is going to be all about those tools and using them and the ways that I use them every day. And again, in case you missed my previous talk, my name is John Fielding. I've been animating for about 15 years. And in that time, I've done game cinematics, ads, short films, previs for feature films, and now gameplay animation. Along the way, I've used all sorts of softwares and covered the gamut in terms of styles and processes. And all of that informs how I animate every day in Unreal. And I haven't touched Maya in 2 years. So just like yesterday, here's a little word cloud of some things that may seem familiar, but by the end of today, I hope that you should all have a deeper understanding of what they mean for animation in Unreal. So if you have them, grab your notebooks, and let's jump back in. So today, the task is we have a very simple animation blueprint that we've started. We have walking and an idling animation, and we need to do the walk to stop animation. We need to make that today. So to show you, I'm going to click this green button here at the top of the screen. We call that PI. It stands for Play in Editor. And this way you can play the game. You can test it out on the fly. So here I have the character from yesterday. Press forward and she starts running. And then I let go and she stops. But if you see, whenever she stops, it's just blending literally from run into the idle animation. It doesn't look very nice. So what we're going to want to do is fix that. And to do so, just like yesterday, we're going to need a level sequence to start. And I'll click on the clapboard, and I'll say Add Level Sequence. It's animation for echo. I'm going to call this Run to Stop. Beautiful. Now we have our empty sequencer, so we need to add her in there. And I'm going to go into here, and I'm going to find my characters, echo, and this is the blueprint that we're using, and drag her straight into here. Because for today, the example is doing gameplay animation. So I import her directly into the sequencer. So she lives here. She doesn't need to live in the world. And we're ready to go. I can't see her because I have a filter on, so shift-click to show that up here. So we have a couple ways of approaching this task. We already have the run animation, as you saw, and we have an idle animation. So I can hit the plus sign, and I can go to the control rig, and I can put a control rig on her. So we're back to this place, as we were yesterday. I can right-click and import keys directly onto this. So basically, any animation sequence that you've ever exported can be just imported as baked keys onto your rig, which is really nice, because then everything is kind of an animation library that's always growing for you. So I'm going to type in run correctly, and I'm going to import that. There are options in here. So if you really wanted to, I could have pre-selected just a part of her body, and this would only apply that animation to those selected controls, as you would guess from the name. If I wanted, I could reduce the keys, and it uses the Smart Reduce feature to make a little bit less sparse curves if you're stressed out by baked frames. All sorts of details in here. I generally don't really futz with it too much, but you can just load, and boom. So now we have animation on the character. Very quick, very easy. So the run, and then I'm going to want to add the idle animation. So I'm going to do that again. Right-click, import, idle, boom, load, boom. Okay, so now you can see the inherent problem here. She's running, but then the idle animation is all the way over here. There are ways that I can kind of move all this animation over, but it's not going to be very flexible, and I'm going to just be having a blend, which is basically what I'm getting out of the game right now, going from this pose into that pose, and it's not going to look great. So I'm going to actually delete the control rig. And I'm instead going to be adding those exact same clips, or those exact same animations, but as clips. So here, same thing, exactly what we just saw. I'm going to add in the idle. And what this does is this treats it like mocap clips. Even if this was hand-keyed, it's now easily, you can blend them together. So the first thing I'm going to do is I only need a few steps, right? I don't need a whole run to do a transition. And I can see here, based on her stance, that I probably want the right foot here plant. So I'm going to go from here, and this is probably going to be the end of what I need from the run to make this. You can click and drag to trim, and if you overextend it, you will see little dashed lines show up. If I move this out of the way, you'll see a little dashed line that shows that like that clip data has ended and it started to loop it. But instead, I'm actually just going to trim it. So an easy way to do that is right-click. You can go into Edit, and I can say Trim Section Right. So now it's gone. Now I can take my idle, and I can go back to where I'd want to start the blend, would probably be right in here. I'm going to drag it in, and now we have her blending. I have the same problem as I had before, right? I'm going to quickly just set my out frame so we can zoom in a bit better. So she's going up here, and she's zooming back. We can actually visualize this by, on the right-hand side of your sequencer, there's this thing called the side panel, I think it's called. So if I pin this, it'll stay up for a minute. I can click on both of these, and I can say show skeleton. So you can see what's going on here. She's going from the pink skeleton to the green one. We have some basic matching in here. And so I can say on this frame, I can right-click on the idle animation and say match with bone in the previous clip. And I can pick the pelvis, and you'll see it moved that green clip. And it's doing it based on this current frame. So you'll see it's not quite where I want it. So maybe I want that somewhere here. It's really easy to do. I just go back here and I re-click this, and now it's updating. And I can, so you can see already, like I have a lot more flexibility to kind of fine-tune this transition. So if I had just keys, this would be kind of really hard to deal with. So I'm going to go again. I'm going to match bone with this clip. Here. Boom, boom, boom. So I'm watching the right foot. And this is pretty close. But you can see that the right foot is actually kind of on this line right here. But by the end, it's a little far back. There's even more you can do in here. So if I go back into this selection menu, you can see here this match location offset is actually showing the offsets that it was doing when I did the pelvis stuff. Oh, that's right, and I forgot. I actually don't want to match everything because this yaw rotation, it's picking up the twist of the hips. So as you're running, now she's not going to be in the correct idle pose. So I'm just going to turn that off. And actually when I toggle that off, it reruns the match. So I can just, okay. So now we are back in business. Right foot's there. Not too bad. This is actually better than I had before. So then now I can click on this clip, and back in this selection area, I can go to the start location offset, and I can see the Y forward, so I can actually just drag on this to get that foot roughly where it was when it planted. So I can pretty easily tweak and nudge and get this blend working quite a bit better. So at this point, I'm done with the clips. I want to start animating. So it's easy as just go to the top of your asset, right-click, bake to control rig. I'll pick the control rig that I want. There are options in here. I don't really bother with it. I just, boom, now I have keys. So now it's the rig and its keys. And by default, when it does that, it takes these clips, it deactivates them. But it doesn't matter. If you have clips and a control rig, the control rig will override the clips. So I could delete these, I could leave them or whatever. I can just turn my filter back on so I don't have to look at them. So there's a few ways to approach what I'm going to do next, and I'm going to show you a bunch of different ways. It's not how I would literally work, but this is just to show you the different ways I would clean up this animation. So I'm going to start by doing the right foot cleanup. So you can see here, the foot's obviously sliding out to the side. And the first thing I'm actually seeing is the root bone in the second clip was underneath of her, and the root bone in the beginning clip was left at the origin, so I have it moving. So if I look at my foot, I'm going to see some funky forward motion. So you can see this Y curve. It's going forward, and then it's looping back because it's counter-animating this thing. So the first thing I actually want to do is I want to move stuff into world space so I can clean this out. To do that, I'm going to select the IK foot, and what I call the loose bits, right? So if I had the hands in IK, I'd grab the hand IK, the pull vectors, all that stuff, and the body. And there's some really cool hotkeys that I really encourage you to look into. So if I hit Shift M, it adds to my selection the mirror. So I only had to select the right side, and I can just add the left side to that selection super easily. So these are the loose bits that I want, and I'm going to use the poses to create a quick pose. I'm going to call it loose bits, and boom. So I can call this back up so I can select the controls. That's really the reason why I'm doing this. I'm going to stash that over here. Boop. And so now I'm going to go to the first frame, because you always want to process, because it's going to process from wherever your time is. So I'm going to go to the beginning of time. You can see here I have a lot of space options, but I just want to send them to world space. So now they're in world space. And you see when I did that, my graph editor, it just got eaten up by spaces. I don't have a lot of real estate right now. But in the view down here, there's this thing called show bars. You click it, it hides them. So I know what I've been doing. I know where my switches are, so I don't really need to worry about seeing those. I kind of go back and forth on whether or not I need them when I do or don't want them. But so now this is disconnected, and I can easily just blow this curve away, and we're all good. This guy also needs to stay put. So now, boom, okay, good. So now I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to reselect my loose bits, go back to my first frame, and move them back to parent space so that they're working as I expect. So this right foot, it's running, so it's right here in line, and then but it's transitioning out to the side. So the first thing I'm going to probably do is I'm going to find the apex of this motion. Ugh. Sorry, this camera's moving really slow. So let me just speed this up. Oh. One more click. There we go. A little bit better. Okay, so I'm going to just work on the x-axis real quick. So by default, your anim details panel is going to be collapsed. Once you expand these out, it's going to work like the channel box. So if I click on an axis or an attribute, it's going to filter my graph to just that attribute, which is lovely. And if you wanted to reset it, you can just click at the top, and it'll reset that filter. So I'm going to grab this guy, and then I'm going to find that apex point and probably just use blend to ease and blend it to ease. And you can see here I'm indirectly driving that slider because I'm lazy. So now it's going to be just going toward that final position. Boom. And maybe through here, I want to get the rotations moving into the final position too. So I'm just going to grab this chunk, and I'm going to go poop. Maybe I want to smooth it. So again, I'm going to hit a hotkey to switch to the slider I want, and I'm going to smooth, smooth, smooth. We do need to fix this algorithm, so it should be hopefully getting better soon. But whoop. So now the foot's kind of just going into place. I can check that forward motion real quick. So that's good. There's like an upward pop. Okay, cool, easy. Let's just nail that. And maybe I want to just do blend to neighbor and just hammer all those to that spot. And then so the tween sliders, as always in any other software, like they're there to get you like quick actions, but it's not how you're going to final it. You're going to still want to touch and tweak things. So there we go. There's still a forward motion here. So let me quickly find that. Okay, yeah, so I didn't like zoom in on this. So if I zoomed in, I'd see there's a little janky thing there. So if you click on a bar, it's going to do that value. So I can just hammer all those to flat. Now it's coming down. Here I want to see, now I'm getting into the weeds and I'm noodling it. I can't help myself. Okay, moving on. So that's one way to solve the foot, right? Just straightforward. Another way to solve the foot is to use our animation layers and using an override layer, which I don't think many animators are super familiar with, because in Maya, they're a little, you can do all this stuff in Maya, but you have to kind of know what you're doing to make it work. So in here, I'm going to take this foot, I'm going to make a layer. I'm going to go to the final pose. So this is the final frame I want it to be in, and I switch it from an additive to an override. Immediately, you see the curves jump. When I switch it, it's going to be inserting that pose as my override layer. So yes, so I'm going to set a key just to store that pose, but you can see it's an override layer, so that foot is just busted. It's fine. This is a weird concept to get your head around if you're specifically very artistic, but I'm more technically minded, so this made sense to me very quickly. An override layer is like scaling your animation toward another animation, in a sense. So right now, I just have this on full the whole time. I don't want it on at this frame, so I can just I can just take the layer weight down to 0, right? And I can just make this a little bit wider, and I can set a key on that. So then I can say, you know, as she's coming toward here, I actually just want that foot to be going toward that final position. So then I can just turn this back on. I can go fully right into the position, or I can kind of finesse it. I can feather it in. And then by here, it should be full. So then just type, boom. Okay. So you can see I actually only have one key that I've ever set right now. But I'm able to kind of really finesse how that foot's coming down I'm just suctioning it toward there. But it gets even better because, so this is the layer weight curve. So then if I turn off this auto frame, because that drives me nuts, I can still animate on this. This is still just an animation layer. So if I really wanted to, I'm like, I don't really like this pose. I can fix this pose here and start to refine the foot coming in. So then here, I do need it in that final position, so I'm just going to jam. If I jam the blend to neighbor, it's just going to basically insert a key that's at that same value. So then now I can just start to feather in, and I'm keying on top of and overriding the base animation. And so this is pretty okay. So that's one way to quickly get this in here, and I can do a little heel up, so I can flip the toe up and then have the toe come down. So I can just push these over a couple frames. Flip and roll. So the rest of this is just like you would in any other animation software, really. So now I've cleaned up that foot with like a weird mathy way to do it. Don't worry about the pops in the knee. I know that's coming from the hips up here. So that's the next step, is let's clean up the hips. So she has that overshoot and some stuff. So I can go into the anim outliner. And this is a list of all your controls, and I can use this to quickly select stuff. So I'll just grab the core of her body, neck, and head, and I'm going to put that into another layer. And I was not being good. I should name this foot fix. And then this is going to be spine. And you'll see I'll jump back and forth, because I know, like, fighting this forward-backward on an animation layer is just going to be stupid. So I'm going to go to the base layer, and I'm going to find this overshoot. And I'm probably just going to, I'll just delete keys. It's a lot easier to delete keys sometimes than to like really futz with the sliders. Sliders are great, but you just want to get it done. So now she's not doing that stupid overshoot. So now I can go into my spine layer and start to really correct stuff. So again, I'm going to set a 0 key. This is an additive layer, so now this button is going to set a 0 key on all my controllers. If I have one selected, it keyed just that one controller, but if I have nothing selected, it's going to key all the controllers in that layer. So then, as you're coming to a stop, you're going to probably lean back. So the stuff that you might expect. You can grab these spines and lean this back. And you see, actually, as I'm moving this body, it's actually moving the arms. And I don't really like that. So I'm going to take another pit stop real quick. I'm going to mute my layer so I can get back to the base animation that I had. I'm going to go to the base layer, and I'm going to take these two arms, and I'm going to make a constraint. I'm going to go to the first frame before I do that, and make a constraint, rotation, and pick the global controller. So now, as I pose this upper body, the arms are keeping their position. This has a local space built into it, but it's local to the body controller, and I want it local to the world. So I can get around that without having to go back to rigging, just because our constraints are just moving keys into different spaces. So let's go back to this layer. I can turn it back on. And select objects. So this was the pose I was working on. And fix some neck, fix some head stuff. The other thing I'm going to want to add into here is she's coming to a stop from center, so her center of mass needs to move over to her right. So I'm going to kind of just, start to tweak some of this, get some angle in here, maybe take these spines, kind of twist it this way. And then she's going to get really broken here, right? And that's where it's great. I just deselect and I click this button and boom, 0 keys. Back on everything. So I'm back to the base and I can rebuild this pose. So I can start to evaluate how I want to transition that weight to the other leg. Maybe I want to take these two and counter them. And I do kind of want some overshoot, but I wanted to control it because that was like a pretty bad, poopy overshoot. So boop, 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 boop. And then do 0 key here. Probably, not like that. This. Drag it down. Over. Spine. Get some overlap. And then body control. And let's go and just nudge this over. So it's nudging back down to the 0. It's not beautiful, but it works for the demo. Let me just check this real quick. Okay, so she's coming to a stop. Oh, I forgot about the head. So let's grab the head and I can actually have, so this pass-through key can be set as a hotkey, which is really great. And again, it's smart based on what you're doing. So I believe mine is, I forgot what I set my hotkey to be honest. But yeah, so boom. So we got some head stuff. Great. We're moving. We're grooving. And we're good. So I got the spine. Now I need to do the arms. Let me bake this stuff down first. Because there's a quick thing to note. When you have a mix of override and additive layers, you do need to be careful about how you merge them back down. You can't just do it all in one bulk. It might likely break things. So I'm going to quickly merge just the override. Yeah, see, that broke that for some reason. So merge just the additive first. Great. And then now foot fix, merge, merge. Great. So you do need to be careful when you're mixing additive and override layers if you're going to be merging them back down. And that's what I'm going to be doing here on the arms. So I'm going to select these arms and do the Shift M trick to select the other side. And I'm going to put the arms. And I could do an additive layer. You know what that'd look like. But again, I think this is just a cool opportunity to show you how to use override layers to your advantage. So it doesn't really matter where I start it. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the pass-through key to basically sample the pose from the base. So around here, I'm going to want another one. And then here, I'm going to probably want to pose here. Pose there. There. And sure. Boom. So now I can grab this arm. You can see I just resampled it, so it looks pretty similar to what it did on the base, but I don't have all the in-betweens. But that's because I'm going to be really just tweaking on the arms quite a bit. And because I probably want to put these back into another additive layer, because I'm going to tweak on these a little bit. Key that. And because I set the arms with that rotation constraint, I'm able to tweak on the upper body as I tweak on the arms. And they're in different layers, but it knows, because this little blue dot shows you what is, if you have selected, is it in this layer? And the green shows you where you're going to be sending keys. So I'm able to very easily switch between this layer and the body because it just knows where I'm trying to key it. It knows what I'm attempting to do, so it's pretty great and easy. And then just deselect this. So then I'm going to just quickly, bash through these poses real quick. Maybe I want the arm to come up, come to a break. Boom. It's probably too much. Reset this. Maybe here I want to kind of overshoot that. back to 0, other arm. And what's cool is if you had something interesting on your base that you wanted to keep, you obviously could, because this is like a magnet, right? So this override layer is like, it's just scaling the base animation to here, and I'm telling it to scale 100%. But I could set this to 0.5 and see what I get. I'll get half of the motion from the base with my stuff layered on top, which makes it a really, really good way. It's kind of like when you would do like a partial like constraint weight on something, so you can kind of split the diff between the two bits of data. So if this is really noisy mocap, I could pick some frames and keep some of the noise in the middle. Like it's really cool, really powerful way to work, in my opinion. And let's just finish this thought. I don't want that there, I want that there. Okay. So now I want to bake these down. You don't have to bake things down, but I just prefer to. There is a limitation. We can't reorder like layers yet. So the order that they're in is the order that you created them, and that can be a little limiting especially when you're mixing additive and override layers. So you just need to be a little bit careful about that right now. So now we have that. But when I hit play, that transition's a little fast. I kind of want to make that a little bit slower. So when I go back to the sequencer, if I collapse this up, when I select this track, you'll note I don't have any controllers selected, but it fills my graph editor with all of the keys. Now, that's because I selected this track. This is the contents of this track are all of those keys. So it's like I didn't select the controls themselves, but I am getting all that data without having to select all the controls, which can be a heavy operation. So then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the retime bars. They're very much like Maya's. They're a little slow. We do need to work on them a bit, but they also do this weird thing where they just put a bar randomly wherever you are viewing. But if you've never used them before, I love it. So you can just double click and add a bar. And let's say I'm going to say I want this section to be a little bit slower. I'll add another bar there. I don't want to squish these keys, so I'm just going to delete this bar because anything outside of the bar is just going to get moved. So I'm going to just click and drag. Give it a second. Because it's also auto-snapping all of my keys. It's probably a little faster if I turn this off and I successfully click on it. Yeah, no, it's not that much faster. So it's automatically snapping and doing like a smart snap on the keys as you release, so you're not getting too many. You shouldn't be ending up with a bunch of subframe keys. So now I can just I can finesse on this a little bit, and I can say, this part's still too fast. So I can just double click and I can do. Just click and drag. Maybe I want to feather that a little bit, and then you can always shift select these bars to select multiple at a time. And what's great too is because they're infinite, right? I could be zoomed in to here, and I know that I'm grabbing all of the keys outside of my view in both directions. It's a very confident way to work when you're just trying to do some retiming. That was maybe a little bit too heavy. So maybe I want to just pull that back a little bit, and we'll call that. But yeah, you can see that I did all that without having to select any controllers. I have access to all of my data. I love it. It's great. So then now, for gameplay, we do need this moving move all. We do need the root underneath of her. So we're going to go back to our pose, and we're going to select our loose bits, first frame, push them back into world. And then the easy thing is to just take this forward curve of her body, copy it, go to my mover control, locate Y, and paste. And we actually have this sneaky, really smart feature in Unreal where if you know, I don't have a key on this frame, right, on frame 21. So if I put this key here and I put a value on it, in Maya, it would leave this key here. When I paste this back down, it'll paste everything, but there was no key that I'm pasting onto that frame. Well, we do a paste overwrite. So if you're pasting onto a section where you had some animation, you don't have to worry about conflicts. It's just going to overwrite it because we know you just want to paste those keys in. You don't want some weird mix and have to clean up some keys on the other side. So now that's a quick way. This controller is following exactly with her upper body, but that doesn't look great in games, obviously, because then she's going to be fully pinned at the hips, which is where the camera is also following, is this root bone. So I'm going to simplify it a bit, and I'm going to take, so this is her coming to a stop. This is the final poses, so I don't want the overshoot for sure. So I'm going to just smash those flat, and then I'm going to find that ease, delete a couple keys, and then now I'm just going to just delete this chunk and just check it. Make sure it's like basically underneath of her, but I get that little subtle forward and backward that you really want. And the next thing, I actually need this root moving with her though, right? So to do that, I would switch it into a different space, but that doesn't exist. But I can actually just make a new space just as easily by hitting the plus sign in the spaces section, and I'm going to pick the body offset control, and now that's a space option, and it shows up here too immediately. So then I do that. It updated my keys so it stays in the same position, so I'll just reset the values, and now it's following that controller, no offset, easy peasy. So then now I'm going to reselect my loose bits and push them back into parent space so that this is actually driving her. Now, why did I do all of that? I did that because now, you're going to be probably annoyed. I'm going to use another override layer. I switched this to override, and I'm going to call this mute forward. So what this does is, if I want to watch it as a treadmill, I need to export it like this for the way that it's being implemented in my blueprint. But I want to be able to mute this to be able to make sure that the feet aren't sliding when she's coming to a stop, so that I have the correct offsets built in. So I'll unmute it when I go to save, and then we're good. In cinematics, you would probably do it the other way around. You would probably have a walk cycle in place, and you could move the mover around, and then you would select those loose bits and move them into world space. Then you can delete that mover, or just work with them in world space. So you would do this process just in reverse. But you can see, it's super easy. There's no stress with any of this. So then now let's actually get this into the game. So on the gameplay side, I'm going to collapse this again. So when I go to the top of my asset, I can right-click. You can always bake an anim sequence, and it'll just fire off, kicking out an FBX. But what we also have is this thing called a linked anim sequence. This is super powerful and super cool, especially for gameplay, and you'll see why very soon. I'm going to pick the folder. I'm going to pick the location. I'm going to type in this very specific name. And that's because I'm being sneaky. This is just warning me. The file already exists. I already have it in the blueprint. I just made it so it wasn't doing anything. So I'm going to overwrite that file. And in here, we actually do have some options. If you are like me, you probably want to have one level sequence and a lot of animation clips in one file. So you would probably want to build tooling around this because it's a little arduous to do manually, but you can actually set a custom time range. So in here, you could say, this is going to be this clip that I'm exporting. And then I could set that this other frame range is the next clip that I'm exporting. So I only have one level sequence for the whole set of animations that I'm doing for locomotion or for an attack or for whatever. That is a more gameplay thing to worry about, but just to let you know, that's where it is. And it's great. So I'm going to export. It made the file, and I can click on it when that shows up. So this is the file we just made. And now when I hit play, and I run forward, and I let go, we see the arm motions. So you can see that the animation is playing. It looks kind of janky, but I guess I probably didn't clean up those arms very well. But that's fine. What's cool is you can also see here that when I come to a stop, there's still a few frames as she comes to a stop. I don't really like that. Oh, wait, let me keep Pi running, actually. And I'm just going to open another viewport 2. Again, a little workflow thing. See these tabs? I don't want to look at this tab. I can just, if there's a single tab in a UI section, you can just hide them and get like a little few more pixels back. So you can see I have the game over here. And whoops, if I hit Shift F1, it'll release my mouse, and I can come over to here, and I have my rig. If I scrub, it looks like, okay, you can't use this. But under this little, whatever this icon's supposed to be, you can disable real-time viewport. And now, okay. And now I can scrub. And you know how like I had too many steps at the beginning of this animation? Maybe I'll just start it here, and I'll hit save, and I'll come over here, and now it's not in there. It's that fast and that easy to iterate, and that's why I think if you're making a game in Unreal, there's so many advantages to animating in engine, because I can do anything. Like if I wanted to, I could do something crazy, and you can just see at the moment I do this and I hit save, when she comes to a stop, it's that fast. There's no import, there's no export, and obviously that's a bad idea, so I just delete it and I hit save. Because it's a linked anim sequence, it's immediately in the game and it's immediately there. But let's see if yeah, you see here at the end though, there's like a little slide. I was eyeballing stuff, right? So let's go back into our sequencer. I don't know why this keeps expanding things for me. So I'm going to be a little lazy, and I'm going to go to the end of the timeline that's nowhere. I do have two things I have to make sure, so I do have these constraints on these arms. I'm done with them right now. Yeah, you know what? I think I merged those layers wrong, and I lost some of that arm stuff, but whatever. So I'm going to bake these down, because I'm done with them. And it's going to bake this frame range, but I could also just say, I just actually want to go the full frame range to 35. And now they're baked. And then now when I go over here, is it? Aha, that's still on. Stupid thing. Okay, so when I go here, I can right-click on my clip over here, and I can import that idle, like I did at the beginning. So this is stashed outside of my frame range, but this is the correct spot. So this is that slide that we're seeing. There's a few ways to do this. One way, obviously big drag select, I can create the pose. You probably should have this as a pose in your pose library to make this super easy, especially if it's an idle pose that you're going to be going back to a lot. And again, if you missed it yesterday, I can always frame this up better. Hit G so it's nice and clean, and then mess up all of my windows. And then at the bottom of this, I can update the thumbnail to be a little bit better, so that I know that's the idle. That's the one that we're going to be using. Okay, so again, select controls, and I'm going to add a layer. It can be an additive layer, like a normal person this time, and then so you can see it happen. So anim layer 2, last frame, set a key, paste pose. So that does that little update. And then now if I hit save, we shouldn't have. Okay, this happened to me earlier today. I don't know what's causing this. There's even worse of a warpy slide. I don't know what that is. But technically, it should be working. If I mute this, I think this happened to me today. I don't know what it is. Every other time I demoed this, it fixed the slide perfectly, but you can see the intent there. Is that I fixed it with the anim layer to just get that pose corrected. Save, and we're back. So the other thing that's really great especially with gameplay animation and debugging things is we have this thing called the rewind debugger. So if you're not sure what animation is playing, you go under Tools, Debug, Rewind Debugger. So it opens this new tool. I can eyedropper my character. So you can see she's filled in here. And when I hit this record button, it starts printing out everything that's happening. So as I run forward, it's showing all the different animations that I have running right now. This is a really cool, powerful tool for doing gameplay. So I can pause, and I can re-look at all this stuff, and the camera's playing back. So I can see all of the animation, and I can see what was playing at what time. And if I click on any of them, I can see more details. So I can actually expand this, and I can see the playback time, the weight. So if you have a lot of stuff layered together, you can see like, oh, you know what? What's probably breaking it is this pose, or it's this animation, or you can see how when this is collapsed, it's showing you the blend between the two animations. So you can see this one started here, that one started there. With this clip selected, it shows up in this other panel that pops up. It's called Rewind Debugger Details. I can actually see the exact time in that clip as I'm scrubbing through. And even more so, I can click on the name, and that's going to open that animation. And it's going to open that animation at that exact frame. So for like, as the name suggests, for debugging, this is like incredible. I can really like pinpoint what's happening, where it's happening, and what the problem is. And the other thing is once I hit stop, Pi isn't running anymore, but that recording still is. So that recording actually lives in my levels now. So it can be annoying, but maybe it's kind of helpful to still have this as a reference as you're continuing to animate. There's just some things to know about, like this button I have on, which is why this automatically is picking up the camera. So this button here, I would want to disable that if I want to keep working so that I can actually look at echo way over here. Ooh. And then I have this other viewport is showing me that playback. It's not live. This isn't like if I save her here, it's going to update this clip, but it is handy, and it is kind of cool that like she's here, like live in the level with me as I'm animating. But if you want to get rid of it, you just hit the trash can, and now it's gone, and you're back to normal. So I hope that really highlighted a lot of the ways that animating in Unreal is very stress-free and iterative, and with the focus on just being creative and getting the result you want, and closing that loop of going in and out of other softwares. Like you just do it all right here while the game is running. Like how much better can you get? Yeah, it looks like we have a few minutes. If there's any questions, I can attempt to answer, or I can let you all go. I solved it. You guys learned everything, and it's perfect. Great. Well, then we can look back at the word cloud. Now these words, Pi, pass-through keys, bake to control rig, make more sense. Oh, we have a question? Here we go.
Hi. Thanks for the talk. That was great. Can you hear me? I was just wondering what would happen with control rig, sort of, I guess, seamlessly re-importing the model if in the event you had to go and make changes to that, like maybe the clothes or the face or something like that when you bring it back in. Like, is it
So like if her
break everything or?
No, nothing. It's not going to break. If you just swap the model, it'll just flow down. Like they're independent modular things, right? So the control rig is just attached to the skeleton. So if you change the mesh in the skeleton, you may need to like regenerate the SKM file, but this is all running on the backbone of the SKM is actually attached to an SK, a skeleton itself, not a skeleton with a mesh. So they'll all still play together just fine. Your animation will, and if it breaks, like yesterday I showed you, you can just you should be able to right click and change it to a different thing in the scene. So it should all just connect just fine, especially if it's the same rig. I can literally take this, I can hit copy and paste it in another file, and it'll apply it.
Cool, thank you.
We've also discovered weird things that if you copy this, you can paste it into a text file. So we've used that to copy paste between two Unreal sessions that were not related. You could just take your keys and hit copy and go to Google Docs and hit paste, and then go to the other one and paste it in, and it just pastes the keys, and you're like, oh, all right. That's pretty cool. Oh, There's another.
Between yesterday and today, I didn't see anything related to facial animation. So I'm just wondering if there are plans to add like, like a pre-made facial rig as well.
Yeah, I avoided that because we don't have facial modular rigging stuff right now. I can only assume, but I don't know when that would happen as like just drag and drop modules. But I do know that for 5.7, there's an intense focus on like proper control rig nodes first for facial rigging. So like splines and wrap deformers and stuff like that is coming by the end of this year. And just to note, Agora, if any of you are familiar, have also converted all of their blue characters that we all know and love into Unreal rigs, and this fall they're going to be releasing their sample project where they did a short film, so you can kind of dissect how they made their film, and their rigs will be available for free. They have facial controls. They're very, just basic, as you would with a cartoony rig, but it should give you an example of some possible things you can already do. Well, thanks for coming. Hopefully it was helpful.